Google Meet dey suppress unnecessary noise. Although the premium version not the free version, and I'm using the premium version. Okay, so what we did the last time, we set up our .env, we set up our .env, set up our model, create the modules directory where we'll be putting all our modules stuff, and we set up the database, connected the database. This time around we're using PDO, which, like we said, is more secured and prevent SQL injection compared to using normal MySQL that we were using before. So this PDO concept is the most approved manner, especially in terms of security in your database. And just one idea you just need to have, there's something called MVC. So the design pattern now we'll be using to code, because what we are doing now, because the last one we did, the last project, there was no pattern. You can create files randomly anywhere, put stuff anywhere, like it's not really like organized in a way. So in terms of this OOP concept now, there is an organized way or idea of how we are working with our codes from now on. So which is called the MVC architecture or MVC pattern. Let me show an image. Although there are different images that explains MVC in a way. I think this, let me see if this one will explain it well. Controllers, model, so this one, it's not good. Make that. Oh, okay. Okay, can I save image, desktop, this one, save image, desktop, click this last one, and let's use this one, save image. Let me see. Okay, so there are different kind of like pictorial description of what MVC is all about. Let's see the different ones I saved and see which of them to me makes more sense. Okay, so this one is a transparent picture. That's why you can't see. Are you seeing any arrow? Like, are you seeing an arrow? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's dark.
Yeah, it is transparent. That's why it is like that. I don't know. Let's just manage it in a way. Okay, so no, I think this one doesn't start so well. Let me use this other one first. So now you are a user, like you are a user trying to enter a website now. So now you be this person with here. So you enter that website. Probably you enter the home page www.google.com. Now you type for your phone browser or your laptop browser. Now that's link, that URL where you type www.google.com, that stuff will first take the code, like it will take that URL straight down to the controller. No, you get within that controller means, but it will take it down to something we call controller. Then that controller will now process two things. It will process the database handling, and it will as well process the front end handling. It's there are different way of explaining this thing. Depend on how you you want to view it. Okay, no waiting. Let's first work on our codes first. Then I'll come back to this thing. We're just going to do something like a very quick kind of MVC. Uh, so not exactly because let's first work on some things in our code. Then we will revisit that MVC explanation. So it will not just be imaginary something. I want something that will make sense to you when we code this thing out. Okay, so we did the database connection. Then we created an index.php. And I said this index.php is like the root directory, is the root stuff where all your file stuff are. So the index.php is like the main, like your heart, the main part where all the whole entire project they based on. Whenever in PHP so far, that's why we always create index.php in all your projects. If you notice, you are always having index.php. So it's one of the like one major thing that must always be present in your PHP code, and to a house or kind of like a source that controls a majority of everything that is running in the entire code in a way. Okay, so let's just continue with what we are doing. Then I'll be explaining as time goes on. Now, in this time around now, let's start with mm, let's just start with setting up our route because before, like I said the other time, before, whenever we have a link, we always end the link with .php. For example, I go customer page, customer.php, or edit customer.php, all those kind of stuff we would get for this URL browser. We shouldn't be having all those rubbish .php things here at all. So for us to do that, we need to set up a route. So we call it route. So the route will handle all our files and make it not appear as .php. So it will handle it internally in a way. So let's just start the setup so everything will make sense. Remember, I'm just talking things that you still don't understand what they are doing. So the package we need for this is Composer. We need to install this package. Composer require Lucas slash no, not this one. Nikic fast route. By the way, I think I've said this thing before. In PHP packages, this site is where you can find all packages. Remember what does package do? Now package are like kind of something that makes your life easier. Like it helps you automate some things or make some stuff work faster in an easier way without you manually doing it yourself. So this sites packages is like the popular sites whereby you can easily get to check for any package, can browse around new packages, you can search for any package. So for example, now this one now, the one we used that in our last class was vLucas. You can see this is the package here. If I enter inside there now, I can see the person that developed the package. This is the person that developed the package. The versions were, this is the current version 5.6.2. Then I think some of them have documentations of how to use it. You can see to install, run, composer require, usage. So there are different extension documentations that is if you want to learn more about a particular package. So the PHP, this is the main site we use for all our PHP package, whereby you want to search for anything to solve your problems fast. I think the other time we did dump PDF. You can see that's the dump PDF here. And then you can to show you all the old processes, the things you need and all. And how to install, you can see install using this, then it's telling you require this, blah blah blah, render, all those steps. So that's just one thing you have to keep in mind, that packages is just a site for all PHP related package. So now I don't mention Nick, what's the name of that route again? Nick fast route. Yeah, this one. This is what will be there. Are actually several routes, like several ways you can do routing. Because we even have Symfony routing, we have Nick routing, you have Slim routing as well, which we'll be looking at Slim maybe later on in our API. There are different ways you can use routing, not just Nick routes. So the ones I have made use of is this one, Slim, this one, and I think this one since it is Symfony. So it's mostly using the Symfony format. But in this particular project, we'll be using this particular one. Fast request router for PHP. To install, run composer require nick/fast route. That's the installation step. So this is like the documentation of what to set up. After you've run it, the kind of things you need to set up. So you can see we're going to set up something similar to what we are seeing here. Anyway, so it's just like a guideline as well, and then how to test them, using them, and all. So that's basically what it's all about. Okay, so let's see how you can set that up. So I'll install the package. Remember, any package you install will automatically be added inside .json, composer.json. Anything that enters inside composer.json will automatically enter composer.log. You can see that's why both of them are shown that yellow. Whenever something shows yellow, remember this project is Git, like it's Git project. So any changes you made, you notice a file will be yellow when you make a new change, which shows that you modified something here. So this package I just installed now that's take effect in these two files. So like I said the other time, you don't touch composer.log at all. Just don't touch it. You can just decide to view composer.json. So this is what we just installed, and this is the current version available, 1.3. I think that's what we can also see it here. So this is the version 1.3. I think this is the more stable version currently. They are working on beta, they are working on 2.0, but it's still on beta version, not yet stable. So this was the one that's installed for us, version 1.3. So just get rid of that. So we have the Nick route inside our application somewhere, but it's inside somewhere in this log, and it's also inside somewhere in this vendor directory, because all packages too, like all their stuff are within this vendor. Like you can see we have it here, Nick. Remember the name of the route, Nick fast route. So you can see this thing now has been added here, which wasn't there before. So the vendor directory is also very important. Don't delete it or change anything there at all. So let's set so there's different stuff we need to do now to set up this route for it to fully start working, because now it's not automatically working. So if you go to the documentation, they wrote the steps of how to set it up. From here you can see usage, basic usage example. So something like that. So let's see how to just quickly do that. I suppose stop before I start this class here. Okay, so next we will just need to import or use a class, because that fast route has a class called fast route. You can see now, we can now see everything related to fast route. Our VS Code can access it, because VS Code don't notice say we don't install a new package. Mind you, all these packages are created with classes, OOP concept. That's why we can access their classes like this. So we will need to import this class. Like this is just like the rule, like this is just how you should be doing it. You understand? So import this class, then there's some stuff we need to write. So let me just be writing them. So next we need to define, where am I? Go down. Next we need to define our routes. So for us to define our routes, just like the way this part of our setups look like. So this is like it's time to define the route. So you can say add route, add route. So something like that. So we need to kind of define our routes. So for us to do that, and because of the approach I'm trying to use for this our project, I want everything to be organized. So what I plan to do is that I don't want us to set our routes in this same index.php. In the norms, index.php should be a very is a code that should have less, is a file rather that should have that should not have unnecessary code, something like that. But even if it needs to have this code here, you should create another file and import it here than putting it directly here to make this file necessarily big. So index.php should just be something simple and like straightforward. So my concept is that I decided to, and the reason I'm doing it is so that you can get to flow with this pattern. Especially when we start using Laravel and Symfony, because that's the kind of arrangement they have as well. So I decided to create a new directory called routes, so that anything will involve routes, we will know say na here we go dey put am, like just for that organization. So I'm trying to work on organization in this our project, so you know how to organize your things everywhere instead of making it scattered.
So
Now,
this one now, is it like include when we're doing the other one?
see the way we're going to import it.
Yes, like is it like yeah, I'm seeing require ones. Okay, yeah. I think it's like it.
So for us to import files aside of files that is in this app, because we have stuffs that is in this app. Every other files outside there, if you want to use it in another file, you have to use this require ones format to import it in this other file. But if it's a file that is within this app directory, we don't use require ones. We use this use statement. That's what we use. I mentioned this in the last class. I believe Chinazog will relate to this when I talk, because I don't talk these statements there. And this is also happening because of this our composer.json. So I'm just decided to repeat it because of like this here, this auto loading stuff. So anything wey relates to app directory, anything wey dey inside this app directory, anytime we wan use am anywhere, na use keyword we go dey use, because most likely na classes. Everything wey go dey here na everything here na classes, no be just normal file. And for us to access those classes, we'll make use of this use keyword. And so that's why we are also using the same use keywords for these other classes, this .env class, this fast route class. So that's the approach. But any file we are creating randomly outside there and want to just import it, we can keep using the require ones. So that's just the thing to keep in mind. Only the stuff that are within this app that will be using this use format only. Okay, so that's it about that. So now I created this directory called routes directory. And inside this directory, it has web.php. I want to create a file, web.php. So this web.php is what will be holding all our routes. So let's just leave it empty the way it is first like this. We will just know that, okay, anything will involve creating a new route. And when I'm talking about routes, I'm talking about, like, for example, like your pages. Like if you know, say, you will go this, see this page where they look now. If you know, say you will go this page for your project, you surely will need a route for it. And this is the route for this particular page. If you know, say you will go this page to my admin, this is the route for it. So when I'm mentioning routes, just know that I'm mentioning like your URL path in a way. So that's what I'm trying to mention. So that means whichever pages, if not CRUD, if not create, if not the list page, just know say all of them must get their own routes. So that's why I'm separating that logic and placing it inside one file. So all route file will be in this particular file. Then we can just import this particular file inside our index.php so that this page will look neat. So when we say we use index.php, we'll put 100 or 20 routes inside this page. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I'm doing this organization. And this is exactly how Laravel follows as well. So most of what I'm doing is just so that once you've grabbed this whole OOP concept, to look Laravel and the rest will be easier for you. So define our routes. So let's do that quickly. So we need to use by the way, all these things, like whatever I'm writing now, it might not make any sense like that to you. Even to me, say like it doesn't like really make much sense to me. But that's just like the rule of using a package. So once you have a package, they will give you the rules of how to make use of them. So now for you to follow the exact approach with the code the package to use. Now so you will take use them, you grab. So so this is the rule, like this is the pattern you shall need to follow. So for us to define this route, I create this variable called dispatcher, and this variable then would access another class. Actually, more like there's a function that is inside that class in a kind of like a global function, and that function is the name is simple dispatcher, and this is just the way we can access it. And what this does is that it will be the one that will dispatch all our routes. And since in this our case we move our route logic to another file, so we will import it that way. So the route logic they routes. Mind you, I am currently in index.php, which means I'm currently inside the public directory. So that means I need to go out, I need to go up, one step up before I can access this other directory. Because if you look at it, this is normally how my directory is. Everything that even here, we have the app, public routes, and all. Probably let me do it this way. If I do ls here, we are seeing app, public route. So all these directories they ordered like this. But now if I enter cd public ls, that's where we have the index.php. So for me to access this route directory, I have to go back up. So I have to do cd dot dot to go up first. So you can see this double dot dot cd dot dot. That's when I can go up first, one step up. Then I can now enter inside cd routes. So enter inside that route directory. So that means so require once I will have to go one step up dot dot, which is just like that cd dot dot, going one up from that directory. Then I'll now enter inside the route directory. So understand the ideas about all this kind of important stuff. Now to understand where your directory is and how you need to go out of that directory to access where other directory is for you to not to then access them. So route, and inside this route we created the web.php, which is the main thing. So web.php, you can say even VS Code don't know now, I want to be that. So this has helped us. So this variable now is what is holding this our whole entire route logic, which we will still implement here. So we are coming to. So the next thing, the next step after this is we need to dispatch the route. Because now we just defined the route and we are storing it in that dispatcher, but we are yet to dispatch it. So now we need to dispatch the route and undo the request we pertain that route. Now, how can we do that? We will need to call this dispatcher variable, then add dispatch function. So this function is what to now set up that dispatch thing. So this dispatch function has two parameters. One is the request method, the other one is the request URI, more like using a global scope stuff. So server request method. When we're talking about request method, we're talking about like all this post method, get method. You know, we've used them whenever I want to submit something, post request or get request. So that's what this server method is. So it is checking for the server method that was processing when you are trying to enter that URL. So it checks for that method, and at the same time, it's checking for the URL gone as well. So server request, we called it URI, but it's still like the logic is like URL, like the link. So those are the two things it checks for: the kind of request the link is handling, and the link itself. Gone. Then we'll store this one in another variable. We can just call it like so. This is like the information about the routes gone, all the necessary information. Now it's for us to now process this information for it to now like really work and access our controllers and everything in our application. So this one will be like a long code write-up, which is what is like a switch statement, like this part. You can see this is where we are in. We just created this route info, dispatcher, dispatch route, so the method and the URI, which is what we just did. So now the next step is to do this portion. So it's just for us to write. That's why I want to about documentation. You just have to follow the rules. So now the rules will they follow here. And if you notice here, the HTTP method, this is just like a variable. And this is where the variable is. And if you look at it, it's still the same thing, the server request method. So I say me, I just prefer to carry this thing, paste them here directly instead of creating a new variable for it. Also the URI, this is it. This is the part. So it's still the same thing. Everything is still positioned there. But me, I decided not to do it like so. I separately create the file. So I don't want unnecessary lines of code like this, whereby I can come here and say, okay, yeah, I'll come make this one HTTP method as per say now the variable way the hold am be this. So instead of me writing it this way, since I know now this thing the variable the hold, make I quick just carry and put am here directly. Since now here the thing will still there. So it helps me reduce my own lines of code. So that's what I'm avoiding. Unnecessary lines of code. I'm removing them, putting it straightforward inside. So the next rule here is to do the switch stuff. So let me just do that. So I'll just for now let me just be writing the code. You just watch. Dispatcher controller c'est fini. What should I write here? Okay. So my basic or little understanding with all this write-up. First of all, we've done switch statements back then when we started PHP, and switch statement is just like another way of doing if-else statement. It's just a conditional statement, just like if, else, else if, something like that. That's how switch is. So one thing about switch statements is that when we use cases like if it is this, let's run this, or if it is this, let's run this. And we always end each of the cases with break. So this thing is not supposed to look new. We did all those things then in the earlier PHP things. So this first part is checking if that page does not exist. Let it print out 404 error page, like page not found. So we'll see for error page if the URL we're trying to access doesn't exist. But if it exists, that means if it is found, let it process all of these things. So basically, it is trying to process the controller class and the method attached to that controller. So that's basically the two things it is checking and trying to connect them together. Now let's set up our web. Let's see an example of how our routes will look like in this our web.php, and to make at least I think more sense in a way. So in our web.php, let me create a first example route. Now we need to import the fast routes class, the route controller. So now I will also so our goal now is to test how this would work in a way. So let's create a new controller. So controller, I'll go to app controllers. So remember I created all these directories back then. So our app controller. So let's create like an example controller now. I will name the controller dashboard controller. And notice the naming convention, the way I'm naming it. It can be like whatever name, then add that controller here. So that's how we usually write it. Dashboard controller. So which means the idea is that this controller will be handling anything involve the dashboard page in a way. So in this controller now, it's just a very simple class that we need to create. And I will name the class the same exact name, which is the dashboard controller. So whatever name you name your file here must be exactly the same name that you give that class, and so on. It has to be in capital letter. I say the D is in capital letter and the C is in capital letter. Then inside this class, I would have a method. So since we're just testing this, I will create one method. I will name it index method. And by the way, don't forget that anything will involve this app directory. Anytime you create a file, you need to use something called namespace. That one might sound new to Gladys, but I mentioned it in that last class. So namespace is basically writing out the direction of where this particular file is. So this particular file, which is dashboard controller.php, we have to put a pattern where how we located this file, which is from the app to controller, then the file. That's the pattern. So I just go to come here and write app / controller. Like I say, when VS Code on the notice, now the next thing with that, then put a semicolon. Very important. So let's stop in this part here. Then let's come back to this our web.php route and complete the routes we're trying to do. So now in this route, I would then need to import the dashboard controller. Now remember the dashboard controller, for me to import it, remember it is inside this app. And like I said the other time, anything that is inside this app, if you want to use it in another file, you don't use require ones. We make use of use. Because everything within inside this app are classes. So make use of the use keyword. So I'll say use. So now use what? Want to use the dashboard controller, but we need to specify the location of where it is located. So it is located in app / controllers. Can say even VS Code only suggest I'm already / dashboard controller. So that's the file we need. And that's the essence of this use now, is where this namespace, if you put this namespace wrongly, it won't locate this thing properly. So that's why we always need to put this namespace correctly. So this namespace has to be correct. That's when this use can easily trace it and access where that file is as well. So this is how we can import. So now like this, now we've imported that dashboard controller inside this our web.php. Now let's create the actual route itself. So return function route controller, give it R as the object for it. Now, what we'll start doing now will just be to set up the route. So we'll be using this object here, which is the R, which is, remember, this route controller, we have to import it. So we are using the class, then we created an object for that class, which is the R. So we're going to use the R to be creating all our routes from now on. So now we're going to say, okay, add route. So I'm going to create our very first route, which is now the dashboard. Now, this route, if you notice the documentation of how the routes, you can see we have the same pattern. R, add route, then you put the direction of, or the location of where that route is. So now, add route, then we need to set it up. So now this particular place now has 4 parameters it can take. So the first parameter is the request method that route is will need. So the request method, that's the first parameter that we'll be putting here. So in this our case, we want to just access a page. It's not saying the page is doing anything like submission. We're not submitting any form, just for us to see that page. So that means for us to just access that page, we're going to use the get request method. That's the method we're using, not post. Post is when it comes to form submission or something related to submitting a click or form or something like that. But get request is just for you accessing a page. That's what get request is all about. So that's the method we'll be using here, get request method. Then the next part is, and see where the logic is also coming from now. You can see that's the request method from here. Remember, this dispatcher is what we wrote here, which is now accessing the dispatch. So that means whatever we're writing here now in this our web.php is would kind of like have ties with what we're writing here. Because remember, we imported this web.php route file here. So everything is being entered inside here and stored inside this dispatcher. And this dispatch is accessing it's checking for the request method, and this our case here is get. So to trigger that, okay, this is a get request method, that's what it will hold in this place. Now the next part it is holding here is it's trying to check, okay, so what's the request URL, what's the link, what's the path, where is it going to? That's what so that will be the next thing we're going to put here. So the request URL will be /dashboard, which means, for example, now if I go to my browser, let's say I want to access the page, probably it is like localhost. You can see how the way this one is now. So it's just like localhost something dashboard. So this is the link we are trying to go to. So our focus here is this /dashboard. So /dashboard / contact us page / whatever. So that's what that's the route we are setting it to be. So that's the URI here. So /dashboard. That's why I put it that way, /dashboard. Then the next thing it needs is okay. No allow. We don't say they use get request method. Okay. We don't say okay the URL as /dashboard. Okay, no allow. So now which controller is it accessing? So let's say once that gets to that page, it's trying to access the get page. The get request method. That's okay. Take you to this dashboard route. Now, what should process? What should the users get to see or process in that web page? That's when the controller comes into play. So now we will then need to add a controller. Okay, actually, it's even 3 arguments, like 3 parameters it needs. This, and this part, which looks kind of like in an array format. So this one now we hold our dashboard controller. Remember, we imported the dashboard controller here. So now we're calling that class, the dashboard controller here. Then class. So we're calling that class. So this is the controller this route should access when it's trying to access it. Let it access this particular controller. So that's why if you go to this part of our code here, we check it, you can see it's checking controller class. So this controller class is what we are seeing here now. That's what it's assessing, controller class. So it's dashboard controller is what will be triggered in this space. once the dispatcher can see that, okay, this request is found. So to go to that controller class. So you can see now the next part here is the controller method. Because after you go to inside the controller class, remember the controller class this is the controller class. So it enters the controller class. Now the question is, which method is it accessing? Because we can have 5 or more than one methods here. So it will ask which method. So we have to also specify that let it access this index method. So we'll come here inside in this place, put comma, then write the name of the method, index. So that's the method it will access. That's why if you check here, we have here controller method. So we have the controller class as the first part here, the next part here, controller method. So that's it. That's just this basically how to like create a route in PHP. Undefined type, route controller, undefined type, route controller. I'm not sure why I'm getting this error though. Route. Okay, collector, not controller. Collector. That was the class we imported, not controller. And notice something about VS Code. If you maybe write the wrong stuff, let me say I remove this arrow now. I see this one now is graded out, which means we are not using it. Like we imported it, but we are not using it in our code. But if we use it, it will now brighten up. So if I put the arrow back, watch this place now, this top part. If I put the arrow back, it will brighten up, which means okay, this has been used. So sometimes if you use and keep track of something, if you get mistake somewhere, you will notice probably there's any typo error or something is not being accessed properly. Okay, so this is just a very easy example of how we'll be doing our route. So any pages now we will do henceforth. Now just to add new extra routes one by one for each of the pages. Now so we'll add them like this. So that I say this thing feel long. So instead of putting all this long thing, it don't make sense to put this long thing directly inside here. Now why I prefer to just import them and placing this long thing here. Come make this index.php file necessarily long. That's why I moved the logic entirely to a new file so that it will be in this kind of place. So it's just for organization of our code. So that channels don't know, they ask me, say, how I know say I go create new file for this one, how I know say I go, those kind of things. So I'm trying to avoid all those scenarios so that you have a pattern to always be following from now on. So that you know where to put your route. You know, say, yes, okay, anything involve that, let me go to this file and put it here. Bam. Anything involve this one, okay, let me go to this file. So that kind of organization, you will know where to put whatever things you want to put for anywhere you want to put them. So these are our first stuff. But now, even if I try to access it, nothing is going to happen. Like if I try to, for me to even check this, I have to go back, ensure that you are, first of all, ensure that you are in your root directory. So we are in this one, portfolio projects, that's my root directory. Now, we need to know those things we used to run, that's php-s localhost 200. Now, that thing we dey run, the reason we just dey run them easily for our project directory portion na because we have our index.php outside. Like if I close all this place now, I can say we no have, for this our particular case now, we no have our index.php outside, but all those codes we dey do then, the index.php was outside. That's why we can just decide to run this thing anyway and it will execute for us and we'll be seeing it. But this case now, our index.php is not outside, it is inside public. So which means you can't just run this thing out anyhow outside. You have to first enter inside that public. So I have to first do cd public. Then I can now run that php-s localhost 200. But that's where they can access the index.php. This is one way of doing it. I just showed you one way. Now let me show you another way of doing this thing. So see, if you don't want to enter inside the public first, another approach is you can still run the php-s localhost port 200, but you need to add one more thing, which is -t. So this -t now just like extra kind of bonus whereby you will find something like a public directory. Then to check inside that public directory if there's index of PHP there. So these are the two ways. So it's either you run this one outside, like inside the root of your projects here, or you go inside the public and then run this normal one that we have been using. Where is it? Like run this normal code without necessarily adding the -t anymore. So you only ask the -t if you know you want to run, just quickly run it fast without necessarily entering the public. So just keep those two things at the back of your mind. So those are the two ways to be going from now on. So if you code this thing, I go wonder, why never they send my web page? You know, say this thing, you don't make mistake for your direction. Probably the way they run your local host, no, they correct because of this thing what I just talking about now. So pay attention to it, I beg. So you can just do it in terms of baby step. Let me enter inside the public, then let me run this thing. Now if I open this, good. You can see now we have 404 page not found. 404 page not found. And that error is coming from this place where I write, this sentence where I write here. If the page is not found, let it execute 404 page not found. That was exactly what's just executed here by just going to the home page, and which is actually legit because truly we have nothing in this our home page. Probably we can even create something later on. Because our goal here, our routes here, the routes we created, we didn't create routes yet for the home page. We only create routes for the dashboard. So if I enter here now, I put /dashboard. So I'm still expecting another error from this. I am intentionally doing all these things so you can get to understand some things. So now I put /dashboard. I see now it is blank. I'm aware to be blank. I know why I'm doing this thing to explain some things to you. So it is blank, but you can see a difference. It shall know that this URL exists because in as much as no show me 404 error, like it didn't show me this error that we saw the other time when I accessed this home route, because surely, obviously, the home route indeed does not exist. But anyway, if we now access a real route that we just created that really exists, you can see it didn't show that 404. It's just showing blank stuff, which is understandable because we've not done anything to. We've not done any CSS, any front-end thing. That's why it's showing blank. So nothing is really processing at all as it stands. Now, for us to make that happen, remember, first of all, like as a user, I'm a user. I first of all access the page. This page, I type localhost 200 and I hit enter. Bam! It takes me to this page. Now it's taking me to this route, and this route it took me to this particular direction. Now, what does this route contains? It contains a controller, and inside that controller, it's focused on a particular method, which is index method, which is inside this dashboard controller. So, which means we have to enter inside the controller and do something inside the controller, which is inside this our index method. So, we have to tell PHP what this index method, what should it do? So what's the next step? As the route is trying to access me, but this place is empty. Like the route is accessing this thing, but now PHP is noticing that this thing is empty, it's not doing anything. Part of why this space is also blank, because nothing is being done at all. We never set up anything for this page to do anything. So now what should it do? Now what I want it to do, I want it to print for me kind of like a front end something, so we can see it in our web page. So now how can I get that done? Now my idea of how I intend to do it is that I also decide to separate the logic of our front end. So anything will involve our front end pages or whatever, whereby involve our front end design, I decide to create a new directory, which I will say you will follow that pattern, you should follow that pattern. Remember, my goal is code organization. So anything will involve front end, everything, put everything inside these templates. No scatter them. Anything will involve routes, put everything inside these routes. Anything will involve front end thing, put them inside these templates. That's the organization I'm putting in now. So for this first part now, this is dashboard. So this dashboard will need its own, we need a template for it so that I can see, view it. So inside these templates, I would just like to create a directory there, which I will just call it dashboard. And probably inside the dashboard, okay, so inside the dashboard, I can just have another file inside, which I will just call dashboard. Mind you, for you to really create a file successfully within dashboard, let me just delete this thing. To be sure, you have to ensure that you click on this dashboard to be sure that the file you'll be creating will be inside the dashboard. Because if it's this template you want, if you want it to be in this template, you have to click this template. I'm showing you VS Code usage now. This one has nothing to do with coding. This is about to properly wait. If you make mistake now, you create this directory. You just come here now, click dashboard dot, maybe let's just say dot this thing now. Now you just create it outside, whereas it's supposed to be inside this directory. So that's another mistake you have to avoid when using VS Code. So I'll delete it. So if you know that you want to create it inside a particular folder, click that folder. I just click on this. Can you see that underline? We're underlined there. Then I can come here and then create the file I want to create inside, which is dashboard.php. So now this is actually inside here. You might not notice that it is inside because of the way it looks. But let's say, for example, if I create another directory, I first clicked this template, command to create inside this template. If I create another directory called, let's say, auth for authentication, now you can see now it looks better. Now I know if I click dashboard, this one for now, nothing did here. So that's just one thing you have to understand when using VS Code. I'm just teaching you VS Code now. So now I'm inside the dashboard.php. Now, personally for me, I won't want you guys to name your front-end templates in this manner, like dashboard.php. Just add some, you can add something extra. It won't affect your naming and it won't affect the functionality of your code. So let's just add something like dashboard.view.php. So like they more reasonable. Okay, this one are like views. Like you're talking about front-end thing, like that's the file. Ensure that it's still end with .php though. So for example, now Laravel, the naming convention for Laravel stuff. Now, for example, now to write this thing in Laravel templates, usually the name of that file .blade.php. So Laravel makes use of like Blade templates. So Blade.php. In Symfony, it will be dashboard.html.twig. So different frameworks get their own style of writing it. So this dashboard.html.twig now for Symfony way of putting your front end things. This dashboard.blade.php now Laravel way. Now this dashboard.view.php now my own Alex way. So you can see this explanation why they give now. So now just the goal of why every one of us is doing for this course, just so we can program our mind, say maybe just because this code no go involve PHP, now just more of front-end design and all of that. So just to make them seem that way, make no confuse. Because to write dashboard.php here now, I can get another file now where I will need dashboard.php, and surely I will need it here in this model. So just to avoid all those kind of clashes and confusion. So that's why PHP people in general decide to name your templates in a different, unique way. You get. So let me delete this or that so that we don't need. So this here is what we need. So I'll just do a basic HTML stuff. I'm not doing anything big at all here. So I'll just write here, welcome to dashboard. So that's what should work. So now see the process again. First of all, I'm a user. I go to this URL, localhost/dashboard. I hit enter. So which means it's once you hit enter, it first access this route, checks if it is correct, if it's available. Then it goes inside the controller that route is handling. So it goes inside the dashboard controller and access the method. So I will enter inside the controller. This is inside the controller. Then it access this method this index method. Now this method is currently not doing anything. Now we have to make this method to do something, which means this controller, one thing about controller, it's just like a middleman, just like in commerce, like commercial class, whereby we have wholesaler, retailer, how do they put those things? Final consumer. So like the retailer na like the middleman between the final consumer and the wholesaler. So now they kind of like orchestrate both two things. So now this controller they handle. So the controller they handle the database, they connect the database and also they connect the front end of wetin dey go on. So they connect the database and they connect the front end. So but in this particular our case, what we are so we are just doing something very very simple. So for now, let it connect only the front end because we are only accessing the page. The page is not doing anything yet. So I'm just going to come here and import that front end, which means I want to import this dashboard.view inside here. So I'm just going to say require once. Yes, I'm using require once. Remember, I can use require once for any file that is not inside app.php, inside this app. And obviously, dashboard.view.php is not inside the app. So that's why I can still use require once. So you can only use require once when it is files you are trying to access that is here. On not file that is inside the app, gone. In as much as it's not inside here, gone. So that's why I'm using require once here. So require once, then I have to put or explain the direction where to locate that file. So the easier way we can get to do it is to use this function. Directory name dd dr dash. This is 2 underscores, by the way. 1 2. You put 1, no go give wetin you dey get. Now 2 dem be. So 2 for here, 2 for front here, 2 for back here, comma 2. Now this 2 is just we saying it's taking it 2 step, like the levels. You can see now levels. So it's taking it like 2 step back up. Why is it 2 step? If I come to this place now, this dashboard controller is inside controllers. Let me open a new terminal here. If I enter cd app directory, inside cd app directory, I have controllers. Inside a controller, I have the dashboard stuff. And now my goal is to access these templates. This template directory. Let me collapse all of these things. So which means the app dey in the location of where the templates dey. But me, I don't already dey inside of the app. I dey inside of the app. From inside the app, I still enter another directory called controllers before I come to access this file. So for me to go back to where this our root directory dey, which is this our project directory, this portfolio. Because here we enter 2 things. We enter the app, we enter controller. That means I have to go back 2 times. So I have to do like cd //. I'm going back 2 times. So I'll go back once. Once I go back once, I will be inside this app directory. Then I have to go back again. That's when I can be inside this project directory. So that's why it's like 2 steps. If I enter here now, you can see if I do ls, you can now access, you can see we have the template in there. Then you can now enter inside the templates. So that 2 step is what this 2 here mean that I'm putting here. Okay. Now that 2 steps, then we now start entering the templates. So we enter inside the templates. What's also inside the template dashboard? That's the directory we created. Templates dashboard, then the file. So that's just the part we're going to write. So dashboard directory, then the file itself, which is dashboard.view.php. Chicken now. So now we don't make this index method they do something now, which means it will fetch for us the design of our front end. Now let's go back and refresh this page. I already know what's going to happen once I refresh it, but I will do. Let me not say it. Let me just refresh it first. So I refresh this page now. Okay, now we have welcome to dashboard. So that means indeed it is accessing our front end stuffs correctly. So that means every setup we've been running here so far has actually been going very fine in a way. Yeah, I guess. So now probably let me go back to that concept now that we were trying to look at in these our pictures. Okay, so now I'm the user trying to access a site. So once I go to that URL, I get to see the view directly. Like I get to see the outcome of what am I doing? I get to see the outcome of that URL. Let's say I type localhost 200 dashboard. I get to see this one once. But yeah, it appeared once, but something happened first internally that made it appear that once. So what happened was this controller. So once the user enter that URL, it processed the request first and send that request to the controller, which is like it processed the request, the route, send it into the controller. Then it checks the controller. The controller would remember I said the controller is like the middleman. It handles both the database and the front end. That's why it is in the middle. Like I said, we have the database there, which is the module, and we have the front end there, which is the view. So the controller will check everything. So what does it have? What is the database connection? Does it need to fetch anything from database? So if it needs to fetch anything or whatever, so what is which view is this connected to? Which page of your design should it access to? That's why in this page we access the view here. So which is inside the controller. So in this part we didn't use any database here because right now we don't need database. So database, we don't need any fetching of any information from database. So but we surely added the view so that I can process that view as well. So once I can process that view, it returns back, it renders the contents. You can see the arrow going back. Then the user will now see, okay, so this is what is happening. So this is what we are now like seeing. So that's just like the explanation in terms of this picture. I'm not sure if it's really still explained it good enough for me though. User access controller checks if there's model, checks if there is view, then users can see. So now the user will come see the outputs in a way. The other one, this one said just the totally out of points as start with the user, just the movement of the direction. So well, that's what MVC architecture, MVC design pattern is. That's what we always will be using now in terms of our code, in terms of the way we'll be coding from now on. In short, forever, not even just now. Because even Laravel is making use of the same MVC. Symfony is making use of the same MVC. Even if you go to another backend language, if you go to Java, there is MVC there. If you go to like all of them, it's just an architecture, it's a software engineering architecture. It has nothing to do with just PHP, it's like backend thing. So if you ask anybody what you know about MVC, they will tell you what MVC is. So it's just a design pattern. So if you're talking about design pattern, they say give me one example of design pattern. Just say MVC or MVC architecture, which stands for the MVC. The M stands for model, the view stands for view, while the C stands for controller. So now it will be the MVC, model, view, controller. So it's a design pattern commonly used in software engineering to separate application logic into 3 interconnected components. You can see how we are separating the logic. So the model handles everything that relates with database, storage, retrieving, submitting a form to the database, any manipulation, that be the model. The view now, wetin user they see with their eye, the front end design. So represent the user interface, what they can see. So it displays and can as well display the data that is coming from the model. Probably you want list stuff, so to display it in a table or whatever. Then the controller, I can say intermediary, like I said, just like middleman. Now they the middle of both the model and the view. Because they act as an intermediary between the model and the view. Now they connect both of them together as one in a way. So benefits, separation of concern, reusability, maintainability, scalability, parallel development, improved organization of your code structure. So yeah, you can just probably write all this in your jotters. Maybe pause the video and just write these things because it's a good knowledge to know and understand this architecture. Hey, the way I explain this thing, I wish people explain it to me that time. I know for stress myself. Hi. That time you know say teaching na gift, no be just by say you know am. If you know am, if you know something, no fit sabi teach that thing well or break am down, whereby person wey you no do go still understand wetin you dey talk. So that kind of thing. Although because of the way I'm breaking down to teach this thing, that's why it's taking longer time. You can see we have almost used almost past an hour already, and we've not really done anything really tangible yet because I'm trying to take my time for. I think my focus is for your own understanding, not be just about to the code to the finish the project. I need to understand why we're doing this way. Why is this thing like this? Why is this thing like this? That kind of thing. So you can have that logic and think that way when you are starting your stuff. Okay, so we've at least done one portion which looks good. Mm, okay. Now let's do something like another. Let's create another controller because right now we are using the dashboard page. That's why we're seeing this thing. So let's just do like another example. Let's say I want to create another route now quickly. So if I want to create another route, let's say I just open my page. Okay, if I check here now, nothing there here, and this is supposed to be our home page. Like this localhost 200 is just like the home page. Like if you go to alex.com or google.com, like whatever you first see is what we call the home page automatically. So ChatGPT.com, whatever you first see is the main home page of ChatGPT. So now this is our home page link, localhost 200, and here we're not seeing anything, which doesn't make any sense. So just for as for tutorial purpose, let's just put something random here. So instead of us seeing this error 404 page, let's create something real. Let's see something real, just so that I can get to understand the process. So now this is my project. I'm trying to think, like I'm trying to let you know how you will be thinking now. Okay, so I know that I need a new page here, and there's nothing happening here. There's 404 error. So that means what I just need to do, I need to create a route for it. So I just go straight. You can see how I just go straight to route. I don't need to say, where I go find, where make I put them? I mean, make I just put them anywhere, make I create. No, nothing like that here. Organization is in this part. So I'm gonna say, okay, yet I need to create a route first. Bam. I'll just come here. Bam, I need to create a route. Let me just create one quickly. So let me just copy this one and put the home above it. You can put it anywhere. I mean just one put them above. So the home page is usually a single slash. It has nothing. A single slash. That's nothing there. So that's the home page. So in this case, we need to have another controller to handle it. So you can name it home page, or let me just leave it as home controller. Then which method inside that controller? Let me leave it as index method. Now you can see now we've created one route, but this error still there. We never create the controller. So that means I need a controller. Okay, that's the next thing I need. No wala. Where will I create our controller? Okay, I remember inside the app we have controllers directory. So this is where all our controllers are. So I'll just come here and create home controller.php. Bam. So I need to now set up this home controller. So for this particular logic, we'll use the same logic here. So I'll just copy. Hey, what thing I do? So I'll just copy this one and just paste it here. The namespace will still be the same namespace. App controllers is still the same namespace, just that this name will change. So that let's put it back to be home controller. And yeah, we're still making use of index method. Now in this our templates, now you start. Now the next thing you need a template. So that means I need a template for us to see something on our front end. So that means I need to now next thing I need to go to my templates place and create a new template inside my template directory. So I can name this one home. I'll create a directory for it separately. Home. Inside this home, maybe I can just name it anything. So home.view.php. You can see I'm intentionally following that concept of .view.php just to make it consistent. So I can just come here as well and put my HTML stuff. So I just say this is home page. This is home page. You can see the patterns now. But though, if you notice, we're still having this red stuff. And if you check this red stuff, what's the issue here? Undefined type. We are yet to import, like we're not with PHP have not accessed this home controller that we created, which means we have to import it inside here, just as we imported this dashboard here. So there are two ways you can come here and type it, or if you want to use VS Code, you can just click on this, right click on import to automatically import it for you. You can see it has imported it for us. Than manually typing it manually. So now the error has gone. Now if I come here now, let's refresh this page. I will hit enter now. Wait, welcome to dashboard. Was it dashboard that I wrote here? Wait, so this is home page. Okay. I have not I have not changed this part. So the home page, the home controller is still accessing the old. No, I copied and pasted this thing from the dashboard controller. That was why. So I've not changed this portion to home, which is the home directory, then the home.view.php. Home.view.php. So let's refresh now. You can see this is home page. So that's just the logic. Like that's how you will be doing. Like that's the idea of the basic way you'll be reasoning when you're trying to do new pages. The route, go to the route, inside the route, go to the controller, do all the necessary controller, connect the database to that controller, then add the front end that is attached to that controller. That's the pattern. Like that's the pattern you'll be doing. And everything is well structured and organized. As when I just come here now, let's say you never did this class now, and I show you this file, I go be like, see as files many, like now, think I don't like to talk now. Journal will say, so when files many here, what's all these ones they do? What's not this kind of talk. So now, see, for example, now let me open a new window for VS Code. Let me open something serious. Let me open this one. This is like a work project. Let me close this thing so you won't see. So this particular project is done with Laravel. Now you can see those things you initially saw. You'll be like, what's in all this? Why files many here? Now the organization be the cocoa. So the focus here is the organization. So all this is organized. You can see we have here public. And inside this public, look at the index.php. I can see this one said the index.php is even very small. Like that's why I say that's why I was trying to make it simple. Like you don't need index.php, no need unnecessary stuff. You can see it also have that auto load stuff that we also imported in our own. If I go to public index.php, you can see the auto load stuff. Because at this time when we are manually doing all these things, that's why we are manually writing this extra thing. But framework they already do them for us internally. So some of all these things we do here we will skip some of them already. So that kind of thing. So I'm just letting you understand that we are following the same pattern of Laravel, which is what I'm intentionally trying to follow. So index of you can see is inside the public. Then routes, see now, routes directly, web.php. You can see the way their routing be like. So this is how like the routes, but this is the format for Laravel way. There are different ways of writing. I remember when we were trying to install that package. When we were trying to install that package initially, I told you that there are different route options, different packages you can use. It's up to you the package you want to use. And in this particular case, we're using Nyclick fast route, and for Nyclick fast route, the format is different. All routes is different in terms of the format. You can see the format here, but it still looks alike in a way whereby there is a URL, there's a controller, and there's a name of that method that's inside that controller. But in terms of the initial way, add routes. This is just specially for Nyclick route, but since Laravel is using a different route, style of routes. I see the get method, get request is here, get. This is the URI, the link stuff. While this is the controller, and then this is the method that controller is accessed with. So it's just still similar. So inside the controller, then we come here now, inside the app, HTTP, see controllers here. So this is where like all your controllers too can be in a way. So all those structures now see the front end. The front end them they named it resources. I intentionally didn't name my own resources. I named it templates because I feel it sounds more front end-ish. So I make no like what's in the resources. So templates sound like front end templates, and this template is this name is what Symfony use. So Symfony use their directory for only templates, naming it as templates. But for Laravel, they didn't name it template, they name it as resources. But the point is still the same concepts. So the views, can see what I was saying, app.blade.php. So Laravel makes use of blade.php, but whereas Symfony makes use of .html.twig for their views, while Alex make use of views.php. You get the concepts now. So all the ideas are following up. So now I say whenever if we finish this project, If you even decide on your own, say, I want to start to learn Laravel on a low, or I want to start to watch that Alex Symphony course, you will still get some kind of pattern because the pattern will remain, will look alike in a way. You grab. So I don't show you now. A lot of even the course, the stuff itself, but the project itself, and they teach even beyond the project itself, join just for the aspect of this understanding issue. Okay, so next we can start handling now is starting our real aspect of our projects now. Because we never start our project at all, we just be play since, just so you know, na play. No, we never know, we don't really dey play sha because or at least we dey set up many things wey we need to set up. So I will, at least right at this point I can say we've set up majority of what we need to set up. That's why we'll be using our stuffs. So now the next thing now is for us to start doing some stuff that relates to this our project. So first of all, I would need a, and I want us to have a login and registration page. So that's the first startup we would need to do. A login and registrations related stuff. And when we are thinking about login or registration user stuff, it means we have to create a model for it or an entity. Remember, I can name it model, I intentionally name it model. Laravel names it model, Symfony named it entity. I think I said this in the last class as well. So depending on how you choose want to name it. So the point is that models, what models do, its own or everything we go inside model, they related to anything database related. Now the only kind of code we will put inside this model will be that anything database related stuff. Now why inside this database connection now? I say this one are like database related. Same thing now. Next now I want to create another new model class because we want to do logins, authentication stuff. So this one I will just like, I'll name this one user authentication .php. So that's another new model we are creating. So class user authentication. Then as usual, whenever you create a class, you have to put that name space. Watch something, if you not see something now, as we not put that namespace, if I come here, if I write, or sometimes if there is an error, it might even appear whereby you'll be wondering why it's not showing properly in your web page or what could be wrong. Sometimes if you want to confirm if all your files are really auto-loaded, when I say auto-loaded, talking about this thing, because this is what is auto-loading all those files. That's why this use is working. So it's because of this auto-load that is making all this use working in all those files. So if I come here and write composer dump auto-load, I think we ran this command that last class, auto-load. If I hit enter here now, okay, it shows, let me see if I, okay, it won't, there's something I wanted to do, but it won't, I can't do it yet because I'm yet to fully finish creating this file and then importing the file elsewhere. That's where the issue would have come in. Like there would have been an error here. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. That's where you know that okay, something is wrong in one of your files. You never configure them properly. Okay, so now let's set up our authentication. First of all, let's create our table because we will need a new table for this. I don't know about zoom this thing because of say. Let me leave it as 100 for this case. Because of say I'm making us see this home page thing where. Okay, so our projects, we created this stuff yesterday. So portfolio projects. So we have the database portfolio project. So this is this is now our first table for that database. So I will name it. Yes, let's name it users. So users table. Now, how many columns should it have? Always it will have an ID column for sure. Then let's make it simple. So we'll just make use of username, email, and password. So that means there are 4 in total. So I will click create. So the first one, ID, the other one, username, the other one, email, and the last one, password. So that's just the data we will intend using to start with for our login, logout, like registration and login stuff. So those are the information we will need, and the form fields we will need: username, email, password. If peradventure you even need an extra field, you can still add. I think there's a way to add extra column. Yeah, you can see now add one column. So I'll just need to click go to add an extra column, like in case you want to add new one. So for the ID, integer should be left that way. We don't need to put any values here, leave it empty, but we need to set it to be auto increments. So check that one, which automatically sets this key to be primary key, which is good. So leave it that way. So username is a string. So I'll come here and change this to a string. Varchar, how much is a varchar? And the limit of varchar is usually 255. Email is also a string. So varchar 255. Password is also a string. Varchar 255. That's the length of the value. I think that's all. We're not making anything null here, so everything there are mandatory, so I'm not setting anything null. So I will ignore those parts. Media type, we're not doing anything related to media type. So that's it. So I'll just click save. Yeah, save. Tada! So now we have the users table created. ID, username, email, password. Okay, so let's continue with our code. So let's see how, I don't think we can finish this. Well, let's first see, maybe it's possible, I don't know. Let me wait for this bus to pass. Don't know if you are hearing it, Sha. Okay, so let's go on now. So yeah, I need to add a namespace. Namespace. Then the direction where that namespace is. App models directory. You can see app models. Then that's where the file is. So I'm coming and write app / models. You can see VS Code, very smart. I think I need to send you. I don't think did I send you guys this thing? Probably let me do that now I remember. I will send you screenshots. Wait, did I send you guys the list of things you need to install in your VS Code, like extensions, like screenshots of all my own extensions that you need? I sent it to this guy. This guy, the CEO of our company, like the main owner, like he just hired him to work along with us to make tax no finish me. So we just work more like a contract kind of tax. So whatever they give him, make you do. Once you don't finish, they will pay him for that way you do. So it's not like a full main staff there. So he also did Jagad too. That's why I seen the Jagad name here. So he also came from Jagad Academy, the same set with me in backend also. Okay, so I want to send it to Turkish Future Tech. So what I want you to install all of these packages, all of them one by one, like ensure all of them did here. Because now that's why they saw these things with the happen now, all these apps and then knowing our models, all these things where they come up now through packages like extensions, rather VS Code extensions, and they make things easier wherever you go. So you have to just come here, click on extensions here. Then you see all this kind of stuff here. You can collapse this one down. This installed, showing me all the old stuff where I don't install. So you just need to be installing them one by one. Like now, for example, now, once you just see this one, okay, look at one, maybe this one, Laravel Artisan. Just type Laravel Artisan here. Let me expand this thing big. Just type Laravel Artisan. Then click on it. Then click on it. You should, yes, then you click on install. Now I'm not uninstalling my own, but you will see install. Let's say, for example, let me click a random one. You can see now install. Then click on that install. So, but this is the one I'm specifically using. So all those packages I sent to you. Also be conscious of the creators. Looking at this one now, Ryan Nadi. Ensure say the one wey dey install na also Ryan. You can see Ryan Nadi. Their names dey there. See am here also, Ryan Nadi. No go install because dem fit get the same name, na different people do am. And some of them get malwares like bugs, errors, make no affect your code or hack any of your activities. So as you are installing all these things I sent to you, be conscious of the name of the person that created it. So those are the ones you should install. So it's just for explanation purpose. So I don't know. Do you think all of these things so far we've done is a lot? Should we just continue tomorrow, or I should just still go ahead with what I'm doing here? Make una talk now. You are muted though. I dey talk to myself since sef. Let me even check. I never even check this meeting at all. So na even only Chinazo dey here. And they left. Chinazo, are you here?
Hello, Alexis.
Na wow. Na so na just low key, keep quiet, just dey. I fit even no even dey follow wetin I dey do sef. Just dey look, just dey relax. I ask question, nobody wan answer me.
Maybe now you off me. I go out, come back safe.
Imagine.
Somebody knock, so me I go answer.
Okay. Anyways, I think let's just stop here then. Even Adani now, we no dey the meeting. So
Okay.
tomorrow we'll continue from